back to my channel. This is my 77 Caprice Classic Aerobat Coupe. I've been working on it for just over the past summer recently, but I've had it for about 15 years. I ended up doing an LS swap in it from a Silverado, and this is kind of the overview video for it, so there we go. Alright, and then here we are with the motor. Obviously it's not too special, it's just an LS. From the Silverado, I got the eBay $150 headers on there that are stainless steel. And all the wiring is from the truck as well. I basically picked up an entire truck and gutted it for the motor trans and wiring, even all the way into the cab. This is kind of a sloppy mechanic style build. I still have to get another intake set up because this is actually pushing my hood up a little bit. I had to take the cover off and leave it off, and I had to remove one plastic bracket for the wiring because it was pushing this up. This all gets pushed back down when the hood's down, because this is the truck intake. I do have a friend that has apparently a spare car intake that I can get later on when I can afford to. I still need to get header style wire set because that is on the other side. It's actually a couple of them are hitting. All the heat is hooked up correctly, and it actually heats a little too well. It gets really warm in there. I've got to hook up I got to find the vacuum line. I think this is the vacuum line that controls the mode box. I have to get that hooked up still, and a few other things of wiring. The truck radiator and the entire cooling system has actually been adapted in. I got to make a bracket so this will actually sit a little more level. I'm just kind of sitting in here. I'm using the truck inner fender wells because mine were completely rotted out back when I painted this car back in '04. What other things? I still need to make brackets for the computer. It's actually just being held in with bungee cord right now. And same with the fuse box. And I also need to make a bracket for the cruise control because I do actually have the truck cruise control set up and in the vehicle. As far as inside the vehicle, I did pick up a 115 mile an hour speedometer from a Facebook group member for either abandoned and neglected vehicles or Brome Society. I can't remember which right offhand. He found a police package of Caprice and asked, because I had seen another vehicle on a posting and was mentioning something, and he said he had one, so I bought one off of him a few years ago. I have it all hooked up, but I still need to get the conversion box to be able to make this work. The entire truck wiring is stuffed up inside the dashboard. The fuse box for the truck is actually up over here somewhere, and the OBD2 port does work and it is hooked up. I have it bolted in right now. The ignition to run the truck is separate from the car. This will all get hidden later on. I'm going to build a center console from scratch. Oh, sorry, I didn't even see that. So all this right here, I'm going to build a center console, and that'll hide that. And then I'll also mount the truck blinker stock, since it has the cruise control switches on here. I'll actually have it mounted either up here or off to the side, somewhere where I can grab it and easily use it. And then I also temporarily have the truck cluster capable of sitting here so I can monitor things. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, even though I hooked up everything exactly like it was in the truck, as far as I know it was, the fuel gauge doesn't work, and that's really the one gauge I really wanted to work, because I do have the truck tank in the car right now until I can get a Fleetwood Brome fuel tank, sending unit, and then a Walbro 255 fuel pump, and then I'll readapt the fuel lines, because I actually ran new fuel line front to back, 3/8 steel brake line basically from a roll, and 5/16 as well. So that's sitting in here off and on. Sometimes I throw it in the trunk so it's not in the way, because there is so much going on over here. And it runs pretty damn good, considering I was pretty sloppy about how things went. And then, yeah, obviously the basic just CD upgrade. When I was going through and installing it, I realized, obviously back in the day when I first started doing this, I did what I now despise, which is cut plugs and tried to rewire things, and since learned on multiple vehicles afterwards that just get a stereo harness converter. But at this point I'm using actually a dual setup where the truck stereo wiring is powering the power all the time, because the car doesn't have that setup, because of it being an older stereo. So the memory wire, or not memory wire, the wire that turns it on is powered through the Caprice wiring. So, and then I did add I still have another plug to add into the dash, or in the glove box is where I'm going to add it. But I did run one of the truck's one of the three power outlets, because this had something drilled in here before, so to hide the nasty drill hole, I drilled through it, and that's why it's not quite centered. And then that's where my FM transmitter goes. So, other than that, all the truck wiring is running along the frame rail here somewhere. There it is. And the fuel line. I've got to make brackets and then piece together the exhaust from a parts house because of money issues. So that's hooked right from the exhaust, or from the headers into a flex pipe, into a cherry bomb, and then a 90, and it cuts off here. Eventually I'm probably going to extend it all the way to the back because it is a little loud. So next video, we'll be doing a ride. Alright, so brief history is I've owned the car since 02 or 03. It's really hard to keep track of the years when it's been this long. I bought it from my dad when I just turned 18 roughly. Drove it for 2 years or so, and then when I went to college in 04 to do collision repair, I repainted it, and then only making $9 an hour at a factory job while I was doing college, I thought I had the great idea of, hey, let's tear the motor and trans out of this thing and try to rebuild it all while I'm doing the body work. And in conclusion, 15 years later, I finally got a motor and trans in. I had a few other ideas along the way, but never ended up doing or finishing those ideas. And from there, I came up with the idea to put the LS swap since it was getting so popular. And the help was from Steve Davis' channel. This is actually why I'm making this video, is he's interested in seeing this setup. He helped me out with a lot of the, with his videos, and then there was another guy, I can't remember his channel name right offhand. If I can find it, I'll put it in the description, but he had the video about how to get the 4L60 to work with the original shift linkages from the older Caprice setup, which is pretty simple. If I get a chance, I can post one too. I had to modify my bracket by bending it because of the way the exhaust was routed underneath the car. But since it's kind of damp out still today, I'm not going to crawl down there. And the car's still a little dirty. It's it sat outside off and on, between a garage and outside, from a couple of years here and there. So it's been bumped into a couple times, and the paint's gotten scratched quite a few times. The hood, had tools dropped on it. I was sitting in the garage. So it's not in the best shape as far as some of the paint, but it's held up alright, I think. I mean, a college paint job, you can see some other mistakes in it. Shaved the door handles, and that was one of those ideas of, hey, I'll shave the door handles and then I'll find a kit, and I'll eventually still figure that out. I did tint the windows recently, just so you can't see the fact that the interior is still pretty tore apart. I mean, the seats are fine, it's just I took the headliner out of it, and so some of the trim panels are pulled off, and I put everything in a bucket. Before the whole learning about bag and tag, it was more of throw it in a bucket and hope I remember where it went. So I do have to redo the back window because it is that complex arrow back shape. I did start off pretty well towards the top, but unfortunately the bottom I had an epic fail on, so when I can afford to, I'm going to buy some more. That's the Johnson ceramic 20% window tint. You can get it on eBay for $49.95, I think, or something like that. And then I'm going to redo. I had actually spent a lot of time cutting the corner spots, and then somehow managed to reverse them and put them on the wrong sides. And at that point I was like, you know what, because I'd already messed up on the bottom panel, I was like, let's just get this done and over with and I'll fix it later. So, but the side windows turned out really well. There was only one real bad spot on the side windows, and that's really right here. There was somehow a chunk of dirt got in there after all the cleaning I did, and actually took the windows out of the car too, because it was actually fairly easy to do. There was a bracket back on the back side of the door on the other side, 2 bolts, take it out, and then you can flop the window Lambo style and then slide it out the door cavity, and then you can do all the window tinting. And then these didn't come out, but I found out later there are brackets if you need to. There's like a bracket here, and I think 2 small ones here and then here, that you can actually, if you wanted to, remove it and do the glass. But I just did it inside the car because there's such a small window. It wasn't too bad. I mean, there's a little bit of coming up here, but they turned out fairly well too. I mean, there's a little bit of bubbling from working outside. I can't complain too much. I'm happy it's driving. The tires I got from the junkyard for now because of budget issues. I'm guessing are from a pickup truck. These are 245 70/16s because of these tires, or the wheels I wanted to keep. And let's see, what do they have? 70, so they're 70 series tires. So they do, the front rub a little bit, but that's because of those truck inner fender liners. And then I do have a limited slip differential that I'm going to put in later on, but I got to get all new brake parts figured out and bought, because this has got like 3 different options for brake drum sizes, and as much as I'd like to do a disc brake conversion, it's just going to be cheaper to redo the drums. So for now, it's running, it's driving. I've driven it for, I remember when Steve posted his last video, but I made a comment about it. But anyway, it's been about a week, 2 weeks maybe I've been driving it, and aside from having the crank sensor go out on me, it's been running really good. It has the 4L60 as well from the Silverado, but I had to put a two-wheel drive tail shaft into it to get it converted. And then the other thing that you have to do in this body style configuration, which is any Caprice, and I don't think the wheelbase changed at all, is I did have to take it to a drive shaft shop, and they chopped it down. I don't even remember the measurements right offhand, but you do have to have it shortened down to make it work, because the 4L60 is a little bit longer than a TH350 or a 700 R4, so I did have to do that. Or maybe it's because of the way I had to mount the engine, because of those LS brackets that you can get. Mine I had to put somewhere in the middle. I don't even remember which bolt hole selection it was. The oil pan in this LS is the actual LS pan from the Silverado, so the 99 or 2000, that's 2000 new body style setup is the oil pan I'm using. I didn't have money for a muscle car oil pan or whatever they have, or recutting it. I just made it work. So I did have to push the engine back, I think, a little bit to make that work. And then I did have to, the body seam on the firewall, that I had to cut little lines into and then flatten it down so that way it wouldn't split it completely open, and then I painted over that so that way it wouldn't rust out or anything. Bodies was really solid considering how old it was and the fact that it's an Illinois car. I did, I don't know if you've seen in the video earlier, but back in college I did replace the bottom 2 or 3 inches of the doors, both sides. I do have the trim panels. I'm probably going to re-put those back on just so that you can't see the weld lines, but it's one of those, I've been waiting 15 years to drive the car. I don't really care how some of the details look, so I just want to enjoy it. It's for me, not for anybody else. And then yeah, I added the light bar on top. It was actually on our plow truck that we had, and I decided to keep it. And then I was like, looking at it one day, thinking, well, since I did paint it red and I had a gold stripe on it, I might as well eventually pick up a set of decals and make it look like an old fire chief's car or something. So that's the theme I'm going with that. And then these headlights are Octane brand. I found them on eBay. The set was $200. I did actually wire it up so that way all 4 of the low beam selections would work. But here, I'm not even worried about turning them on right now. It's too bright today. But I noticed while driving it, it did seem a little too bright with the low beam settings, so I decided to disconnect that setting, because these run the H4 connectors, so I was able to adapt the wiring to make it work with all 4 low beams, and then when the high beams came on, the rest of the lights came on. But then I decided to disconnect the inside low beams because everything was too bright, and then it's just running the 2 outside ones for low beams. The 4, or that's actually 5 LEDs each on the bottom row are the low beams, and then the entire headlight is the high beams. But I don't want to let this run on too long. This is my build. I didn't really track it too much. A lot of it was sitting around waiting for things to get done, and then finally getting to drive it. So, alright guys, have a good day.
Yeah.